Real quick, the only ask I could ever have of you guys is to help spread the word so we can help more women lose body fat, build muscle, reach their goals, and feel insanely confident. And the only way we can do that is if you rate, review, and share this podcast. So, the single thing I ask for you to do is if you could leave a review. It will take you 10 seconds and it will mean the absolute world to me and may change the world of someone else.
All these different places, all the populations have very different diets. And these are all in the top 10 longest living countries in the world. It's not the nutrition, and it's like they're not doing HIIT classes, they're not doing CrossFit, they're not doing burn boot camp, they're not doing that. They're the people who live the longest, among other things, they walk the most. They walk. Now, the other aspect of it that I think is really important is they also have amazing work-life balance.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the Macro Hour. And today I have the incredible honor of hosting someone who truly needs no introduction. He's a powerhouse in the fitness industry. He's known for his no BS approach, his razor sharp wit, and the kind of wisdom that really only comes from years of relentless dedication to helping people transform their lives. He has records in powerlifting. He's Gary Vee's formal personal trainer and mastermind behind many countless reshares on stories and mic drop moments in the world of social media and the world of fitness and nutrition. So beyond all of that, though, he's one of the most genuine, down-to-earth guys that you will ever meet. And I'm meeting him for the first time, but I've been following him on social media for years. I'm just super stoked to have him on the podcast today. Get ready for some laughs, guys, for some truths, for some no BS moments, for some gold, because Jordan Syatt is in the house. Jordan, what's up?
What is going on? That was a hell of an introduction. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
Dude, of course, man. This has been a long-awaited time that I wanted you on the podcast, and I know like there's so many people that are ecstatic to just hear you right now. So
That's a lot of pressure I'm just a short, bald, nerdy Jewish guy. There's really not much special, but I appreciate it. And if I can help at all, that makes me incredibly happy.
Yeah, dude, that's why you are such an awesome human, for that exact comment right there. So you have built a massive reputation in the fitness space for really cutting like through the noise and delivering advice that's as practical and also as effective. So what's one myth, because I just love watching you on social media just cut through all the BS. What's one myth that you wish people would stop believing, and why does it drive you nuts? And
Oh,
please have at it.
there's so many. It's there could be a library filled with them. The one that just pops immediately in my head is I fucking hate athletic greens. It's infuriating to me. It's infuriating to me, not even because of athletic greens, but because of the nonsense that people put themselves through and the justifications in their mind. They literally think that they can have this powder and think that it's replacing eating fucking vegetables. And it's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. And then the worst part is when I post about it and say it, is people will come in and be like, they make all the difference in the world, da 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 da. And it's like, what in the, like, do you even know what's in it? It's worse than a multivitamin. It's like, it's not even as good as a multivitamin, and you're paying like 50 times the price. So maybe it's placebo, just who knows? Maybe because you're dropping $100 a month on this shitty supplement, maybe you're convincing yourself that it's making a big difference. And who knows? Maybe you could just eat some fucking vegetables and actually feel better and see health improvements, as opposed to just taking this disgusting powder that it doesn't taste good. It doesn't have these miraculous benefits. It's that one really fires me up recently.
Yeah, facts. I hear you so loud and clear. When you even just put them into your mouth, majority of people hold their nose to try
Yes,
and drink it.
it's gross.
It is. And
I
people
I
listen.
literally have them here. It's people think I just make, like, I literally, like, I try this stuff deliberately because I want to see, like, it makes me nauseous. it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And you don't get as many benefits as you would from just a standard multivitamin.
Can you unpack that a little bit? Like, what's the difference between what's in the greens and then what would be the difference of someone just actually taking a multivitamin or even just eating the vegetables? Just
Yeah,
eat vegetables.
it's if here's the way I put it. The best thing is just eating the vegetables.
Yeah.
Um, that's the best thing you can do, and it's better for your health. It's better for your wallet. It's overall better for everything. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I just don't like vegetables. And you want to go down that route? We can go down that route. Oh fuck, my wife is texting me. I'm sorry, even though I'm on do
It's
not
okay.
disturb. Um, we can go down the route of you don't like vegetables if you want to, but I always give with this example. I'm like, okay, let's say your child doesn't like doing homework. And they're like, you know what? Like, I'm just not going to do my homework. Like, tough shit, Charlie. You got to do your fucking homework. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. You have to do your homework. It's like, I
Mhm.
don't care if you don't like eating vegetables. Like, eat your fucking vegetables. Just do it. You're an adult. And if you want to be treated like an adult, then act like an adult. It's very simple. There are also, and now more than ever, there are so many ways, there are so many resources to learn how to make vegetables taste better. There are so many things you can do in YouTube searches and podcasts and free recipes all over Google. Go on ChatGPT. Hey, tell me an easy way to make Brussels sprouts so they taste good. Give me an
Mhm.
easy way to give me 50 different recipes that use less than 4 ingredients and will make vegetables taste good. And ChatGPT will spit that shit out right in your palm, and it will tell you. And it's amazing. There's no excuse not to. And even if none of that existed, just eating vegetables, it's like sometimes not everything you eat should be orgasm in your mouth good. Not
Mhm.
everything needs to be the most miraculous meal and have this most amazing dopaminergic response. Like you can have things that don't necessarily taste great just because of its health benefits. And also at other points in time, you can eat things just because it tastes amazing, and that's fine too. But not everything has to be that.
Amen. Love that. So you've worked with everybody in the fitness space. You've worked with normal people, right? And normal individuals, and you've worked with Gary Vee. You've worked some big names. What would you say is like one of the most surprising lessons that you've learned about what truly drives success, regardless of who you're working with? Like, what's one thing that stands out the most?
The biggest thing, it's without question, and this isn't even just like what I think. This is backed by the research very clearly. It's the technical term is self-efficacy, but it's your belief in your own ability to succeed. That's the
Mm,
number one thing. If you believe that you are going to succeed, then you are infinitely more likely to succeed than someone who doesn't believe it's going to work. And it's very simple. It's like the sort of analogy that I'll use is if I told you that if you bought if you played the lottery today, that you had a 99% chance of winning, then you would go buy lottery tickets. You'd buy
totally.
as many as you needed. It was like, hey, if you spent $10,000 in the lottery, you're of a 99% chance of winning. Even if you didn't have that money in the bank, you would borrow it. You'd find a way to get that money because you'd be like, I'm going to get millions of dollars. If I told you you have a 10% or 20% chance of winning the lottery if you spent $10,000, like it might not be worth it. And by the way, that's a pretty super high fucking chance of winning the lottery still. But like, if I gave you a 10% chance of winning the lottery if you spend $10,000, like, I don't know, might not be worth it. Like I could lose 10,000 pretty easily.
Mhm.
If you believe that your success is inevitable, then it makes sense that you're going to try. You're going to put the effort in. You're going to spend time going to the grocery store, looking at the food labels. You're going to go to the gym. You're not just going to have the good days in the gym, but you're going to be happy to go through the bad days in the gym because you know it's going to be worth it because you're going to succeed no matter what. If you don't believe that success is inevitable, then it makes quitting much more easy. And this is where we see people all the time like, oh, I failed over and over and over and over again. It's not that you failed, you just gave up too soon.
Mhm.
Like there wasn't a failure. You just quit. If you didn't quit, then you would have made much more progress. And I think one of the major issues here is people, they will often only have one marker of success, which is their weight. And so it's, well, if the weight isn't going down, then things must not be working. It's like, okay, but what about your strength? What about your energy levels? What about your skin? What about your mood? What about your conditioning? What about your resting heart rate? What about, like, there's so many different markers that we could be measuring outside of just the scale. And so if you put all of your eggs in the scale basket, then it's going to be very easy for you to be like, well, it's just not working, even if you know how the scale works. So that for me is without question, whether you're the richest person in the world, the poorest person in the world, or you've got all the time in the world or no time in the world, if you believe it's going to work, you're far more likely to be successful.
I love that so much, and more so to the point like that you said, with failure is you only fail by giving up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can learn from a mistake or a mishap or whatever, and you have an opportunity to continue on forward, and that's more belief behind the system of you getting to where you want to be. The, to piggyback off of that topic a little bit, um, and even approaching like the new year, right? Like there's going to be so many people that dive in and they're like, oh, I want to get into a quick fix, or I want to find the next fad diet, or I want to they're attached like to what you said with the scale. They're attached to an outcome rather
Mm-hmm.
than like focusing on the sustainability and focusing on the building habits and focusing on the longevity and the long game of a fitness journey, not necessarily a destination. What would you say to those people that are going to start this new year and somewhat have this type of mindset, and also like they're going in with it like an all or nothing mentality, like they have it's all or nothing mindset rather than like I just want to approach this with sustainability and learn how to have a successful journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, the first question I'd ask is, how has that worked for you in the past? Like, most of these people have tried in the past where they're like, all right, you know what? New year, new me, shut the fuck up. It's not a new you. It's the same you. You're the same
Mm-hmm.
person. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's literally nothing different. All that can change is your choices. So you're not new. It's your decisions, your actions can change. With that in mind, like, most of these people every year, many years, have been like, all right, I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm never going to have a carb again. Dad, it's like, good fucking luck. Like, that's
Yeah.
how well has that worked for you? It's actually really funny as a sort of aside, but it will come back to it. If you look at the brain response to a gambling addict, the brain response that they get from almost winning is nearly identical to the brain response they get from actually winning,
Mm.
which is for me very interesting. And I see people exemplifying this with people do crash diets where, like, they'll be like, oh yeah, when I did that juice cleanse, I lost like 30 pounds. I was like, and then what happened? And they're like, well, then I gained it back. It's like, it's crazy to me that they focus on how quickly they lost weight and then completely skate over gaining it all back and more, and thinking, well, it must have worked and that must be what I need to do because that's what happened when I lost the weight. But you gained it all back. And it's not because you're a failure. It's not because of anything other than that was a really shitty way to do it. The goal isn't to lose the weight. The goal is to lose the weight and keep it off and
Mm.
continue improving. If you weren't able to keep it off, then the method you used sucked. Try another method. So going back to New Year's and crash diets and going to the gym 7 days a week, it's like, the other thing is people have this idea, this false idea, that they really need to make drastic changes to see huge health improvements and make massive progress. And it's funny because when I just say, like, if you just get your steps in, if you just walk, like, that's going to make a huge difference. And people literally don't believe me. They're like,
No.
walking,
Yeah.
really? I'm like, motherfucker, who let's look at the longest living societies in the world, the longest living ones. We can look at Japan, we can look at France, we can look at Sweden, we can look at Italy, among the top 10 longest living societies in the world. Greece, all these different places, all the populations have very different diets, and these are all in the top 10 longest living countries in the world. It's not the nutrition, and it's like they're not doing HIIT classes, they're not doing CrossFit, they're not doing burn boot camp, they're not doing that. They're the people who live the longest, among other things, they walk the most. They walk. Now, the other aspect of it that I think is really important is they also have amazing work-life balance. Here in the West, it's really like we grind to live. Like grinding is life. Like get up early, stay up
Just
late,
show it
take
all on social
Adderall. Like
media.
yeah, just like fucking grind, make more money. Whereas they work to live. They don't live to work, and they're fine taking off in the middle of the day to go have lunch with their family, and they're fine, like they are much more relaxed, which is, I think, arguably the most important thing that improve. I mean, they often smoke, they drink they drink very frequently, and
Mhm.
all these things that, especially nowadays, we're seeing people being like, I don't drink anymore. It's like, I'm glad you don't drink, that's fine, but let's also realize that people can do that healthily and also live a very healthy life if they're doing it in moderation, and if other things are in check. So in terms of approaching the new year, and I've said this literally every year since like I started making content in July of 2011. So I've been saying this every year since then. But it's and before that, just to my clients in person before I started posting online. It's making small changes. Get your steps in. Like, get your fucking steps in. That should be priority number one.
Mhm.
Um, I would say get your fiber in, get your protein in. If you have a lot of excess weight, lose the weight. That's going to be and by the way, a lot of that's going to come from just fucking walking. If you're walking 2,000, 3,000 steps a day, up it. If you just increase to 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 steps a day, you get more protein, get more fiber, eat your vegetables instead of having athletic greens. All of a sudden, like, you're going to start losing weight. You're going to feel way better, and your health markers are going to improve.
Facts. It's yes, thank you. Like, this is, like, just it's so refreshing. I mean, you have such a big name in the fitness space, and, like, this is what you speak about on your, Instagram through and through, and, you gotta love the comments that you get, and you handle it so freaking honorably, but it's nice, it's refreshing when literally, like, it is just the basics. Like, we've gotten so lost in the fitness space on, like, getting to the next trendy, flashy Ozempic or doing some ridiculous thing that could only harm humans even more rather than keeping it like, okay, sleep right, have low stress,
Yep.
go for 10K or 10K steps, whatever. It doesn't even need to be that. 7K is good
Yeah.
enough, 8K is good enough, whatever. Just up it from what you're doing now. Where do we get lost? Like, how do we, like, just like real honest conversation? Why did this, like, I feel like each year something new comes out that is just
Mhm.
like, but it's just going far away from the basic principles of fitness.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different routes that we can attack this from, and why it happened. And to be fair, it was happening before social media, but in the same way that news happened before social media. But news would come on and you'd watch it in the morning, maybe before work, and you'd watch it when it came on later when you were at home after work, and then maybe you were reading the newspaper, but it wasn't in your face all
Mm.
day, every single day, nonstop, more like an endless amount, a truly limitless amount of just boom, boom, boom in your face. And yes, like there's been propaganda in the news for as long as the news has been around, but we've seen dramatic rises in not only propaganda but in as news has become just in your face all the time. The pressure for them to make more and make more and make more has risen, which means that oftentimes they'll just make shit up and make these egregious claims just to get more clicks, more eyes, because not only can it be in your face more, but now there's a greater amount of competition for it. So now it's like we need to say the craziest shit to get more clicks, because more clicks means more money. Like, more clicks means more ads, more ad dollars are being spent on that company. Fewer clicks means we're not going to spend our money with you. So even before social media, that was happening with news, and it was also happening with fitness. And we saw, I mean, I remember my parents doing like Nutrisystem and doing like I remember those snack wells, like those snack well
Mm.
snacks, like the low fat snacks in the green box. Do you remember those?
Oh, the containers where you had
Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah,
They were
yeah,
like
yeah.
these like they were these like fat-free cookies. They were super high sugar, but it was during like the fat-free craze in like the early 90s. I remember that, and I remember like my parents were like, "Yeah, as long as you don't eat fat, you're fine." And then
Mhm.
and then Atkins came out. They're like, oh, so as long as you don't eat carbs, you're fine. So it was the same shit packaged differently. And instead of it coming out on social media, it came out in books and it came out in like morning news cycles. So same stuff, but it wasn't as pervasive because we didn't have our phone in front of our face all the time. Now we've got our phone in front of our face all the time. Competition has risen and people are making egregious claims so that they can stand out more. And that is why I think it's becoming crazier and crazier and crazier. And that's the negative, but there's also a positive. I mean, there are many positives. For example, I'll go to some very famous people's pages, like I don't know, the Kardashians or whomever, and they'll be promoting some bullshit fitness product
Mhm.
or some bullshit supplement. And the comments are people being like, "This doesn't work. Here's why." Laws of thermodynamics, and like thousands of likes and thousands of comments similar to that. And it's actually incredible because that you wouldn't see that before. Number one, you didn't have a comment section where people could chime in, and number two is we do have a much overall higher level of education than we did previously, and there's more awareness. But like with everything, there are pros and cons. And unfortunately, we're going to continue to see new things come out year after year after year because the people who make money based off of clicks and views always need to find something to create that around. That's why right now we're seeing huge trends towards carnivore. We're seeing huge trends towards raw milk. We're seeing huge trends towards like food dyes and seed oils. Like we're seeing
Oh,
all
yeah.
these trends because that's driving views right now. It's driving clicks. That's and ironically, it's completely politicized. It's like you can tell people's political views based on what diet they're following or like what they're promoting, which is,
Yeah.
I think, honestly, it's remarkably dangerous when you're so tied into a belief that your nutrition is built off of your politics and your
Facts.
politics is built off of your nutrition. It's a really interesting world that we're living in right now.
Just use like first of all, I got tons and tons of chills by some of the comments you said, mainly on the positive, like the positive side of things, or the comments are people speaking up, being like, "No, this is bullshit. Like this is not real. Like let's all like bring more awareness to this."
Hmm.
Pushing these types of things that aren't good or not working or just what getting clicks. Um, but it's crazy. I saw you on Instagram that you lost views by not even sharing what your political stance was too. Like it's just wild where we're going in these nowadays. It's
It's
crazy.
crazy.
Or not views, lost followers. Sorry.
I lost 5,000 I'll tell you, like, I don't care. I lost 5,000 followers because I follow Trump on Instagram.
No way.
Yeah, so what happened is the day after the election, and by the way, I also follow Biden, right? Like I whoever is like I follow my local officials. I follow many people. I don't only follow people I agree with. I
Yeah.
follow people who I disagree with too. And I follow
Facts.
people because I want to know what the fuck they're saying because I don't know, the president is a good idea like to actually get an idea of what they're saying and what they're putting out. But and at first I was like, no way. And I had a lot of people DM me saying, "Why do you follow Trump? Why do you follow Trump? Why do you follow Trump?" And I was like, because he was the president and he's going to be again. And I got a bunch of people. One person said, "I just realized you followed Trump, so I'm unfollowing you." And I asked her, I was like,
Crazy.
out of curiosity, are you going to people you follow and checking their who they follow to decide how you do this? And she said, no, there's a big movement right now where people have been told to go to Trump's page, look at his followers, and if you follow someone who follows him, they'll show up first. And they're just saying, go unfollow anyone who follows him. So I lost over
Stop.
5,000 followers just because I follow the president elect.
That is
It's
insane.
insane. It's really crazy.
That's
And people
insane.
wonder like why we're so divided as a nation. It's like
No.
we
It's
could
crazy.
just over half the country voted for the guy. Like, how about we have conversations and try and figure out what's going on? Like,
Exactly, like, I'm
it,
down here opposing conversations because we can have if we get a mutual respect around it to understand,
yes.
like, your view and my view, cool, we can keep going on and be merry about our days, but, yeah, same, I lost around 5,000 followers too as well, it was pretty
Shut up.
wild.
Did you really?
I'm dead serious, I can show you the decline
No,
on
I
where it's
believe you. I
at,
believe you. That's insane.
it's wild.
Is it because you follow Trump?
It's also because I did share my views. This is the first election I actually politically
Oh,
put on
good
my
for you.
story.
That's awesome. What'd you say?
well, one thing was women's rights. So people were coming at me saying, you're going to vote for somebody, because I did vote for Trump.
Yeah.
You're going to vote for someone that's taking away women's rights. And I was like, he's not, it doesn't
He's not
matter
taking away
who,
women's rights.
it doesn't matter who's in the political, is in the seat, is at a
Correct.
state level. So if you have a
Correct.
problem with so I
Correct.
put that out there. I was like, we need to change this narrative, ladies. Like, it just is not,
Correct.
you're
It
not, yeah, it's
You're
not okay.
100% right, and by the way, you know who was a huge fan of doing exactly what the Supreme Court did is Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Ruth, who's like one of the the greatest one of the greatest women of all time, and especially like the left really likes to put her on a pedestal, and she did so many amazing things. Ruth Bader Ginsburg wanted abortion down to the state level. She didn't want it on a federal level because
Yeah.
it actually sets it up for a lot more. There are many issues that come with that. So for people to a lot of these people, they really become one issue voters. And it's like, well, this is the one thing. And they've been misled by the media to say, like, well, they're stripping away women's rights. I get a lot of women being like, Jordan, you have 2 daughters and I live in Texas. And they're like, how
Mhm.
can you be supporting like something like this? They're like, I hope you're voting the right way to support women's rights. It's like, this is not stripping away women's rights. It's which is, I understand it's very controversial and people get upset about it. But if that's what you've been told, then you're listening to media that is deliberately creating incendiary, is using incendiary language to try to get you angry so that you will continue to watch them so that they will get more ad dollars. You are a tool for their money making machine. It's not accurate. And we can even see the media backtracking now. We're seeing MSNBC, we're seeing CNN backtracking now, having meetings with Trump. It's like, listen, if you called him Hitler, and
Mhm.
then you're having meetings with him, well, then clearly he's not Hitler,
Yeah,
right? And like as a Jew, it infuriates me when people call him or anyone who's not Hitler, because it's
100%.
like that it's outrageous to have that to have the audacity to do that is wild. And like, what do you expect? The media calls the guy Hitler for 8 years, and then the public gets really upset and like, well, what the hell, everyone must be Nazis then. It's like, or maybe you've been misled and
Yeah.
not everyone is Nazis. Maybe most of us are middle of the road, regular everyday people who just want the best for our friends, for our family, for our loved ones. And we got tired of being lied to and being told that we're bad people. It's yeah. So that was just a rant I wasn't expecting to go on,
I
but
know, me neither, to be honest, but it's all right. It's all good. It's what makes
I mean,
this podcast the best.
respect for you for openly sharing that and for I love that. I think it's really smart.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And yeah, this is this is why I love podcasting. You just never know where the conversation's going to go, but respectfully, like I respect, where the conversation that we just had about it. So,
I mean,
let's bring it back.
what would you say? Like, what do you think? Do you agree with what I said? Disagree with what I said?
Oh,
What
I
do you
agree
think?
100%. I agree
Yeah.
1000%. Like, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's about being educated and the right things to send, like, to not buy into what media is telling everybody and what is being pushed out there, but doing your own research on
Hmm.
topics that will
Hmm.
gain your own understanding and if you believe it or not. And then also being okay if people have opposing views. Like I said, it's like, cool, can you open up a dialogue where there's
Hmm.
mutual respect rather than
Hmm.
like you're an idiot or
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z. It's like there's no room for discussion at that point. It's like,
Hmm.
cool. They're like, it's so just, I agree 100%.
I think the dialogue part is so important, and also the research part. I think a lot of people, they watch a 90-second TikTok or a reel
Exactly.
and they think that's research.
100%.
They think that because someone can speak eloquently and put together what they claim as fact, well, now all of a sudden that they are educated on a topic. And this is Dunning-Kruger through and through. This idea that you must know things now because you saw this YouTube video, this TikTok, this Instagram. I think the best research you can do is talk to people with opposing points of view in a controlled and constructive dialogue. And what people forget about debates is the goal of a debate isn't to win, and the goal of a debate is not to change the other person's mind. The goal of a debate is to find what you agree on.
Mhm.
That's the goal. Find the common ground. And when that is your goal of finding the common ground, you'll find that the vast majority of people agree on way more than they disagree. It's much easier to become inflammatory and incendiary when you claim the other side is evil. And that's what our country has come to in the last 8 years. It's the other side, whatever the other side is evil. And by the way, that's the literal stated goal of propaganda, to make it to dehumanize the other side, to make the other side seem evil. And if
Yeah.
that's where your brain goes, it's like that's a problem you need to address and have real open conversations that try to find the common ground.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for your sharing your points of views on that. I appreciate hearing it as well.
Yeah.
Quick break. If you're finding this episode helpful so far, it would mean a lot if you could hit pause for just a second, leave a quick rating or a review, or share it with someone who could benefit from it. Your support helps more women discover these tools to build muscle, lose fat, and feel confident. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. Let's bring it back to
Macros.
macros, fitness. All right. So on the topic of macros, a lot of like, what advice would you give someone that feels overwhelmed by the idea of tracking? Because from my perspective, I think macros is like a North Star. Like, I don't expect someone that's just starting out in fitness to be like, I need to go track my protein, fats, and carbs. Like, it's immediately overwhelmed.
Correct.
So what would be some advice that you would give someone that may be feeling overwhelmed tracking their food starting out, but knowing that that's going to improve their relationship with food?
Yeah, I look at food, tracking food as a progression in the same way that I look at exercise. Like, I'm not going to start someone out brand new to exercise with a snatch, grip, deadlift deficit versus bands and chains. I'm going to start them off with like an elevated kettlebell deadlift and make sure they have the mobility and the stability to get through it with good technique, and then progressively overload it both in weight but also in range until eventually they can kettlebell deadlift from the floor. Then maybe they'll go to a sumo deadlift and then a conventional deadlift, and after a couple of years, maybe they'll be doing snatch, grip, deadlifts from a deficit with versus bands and chains. But that takes a while. And for me, if we're gonna use the like deficit snatch, grip, deadlift versus bands as like the ultimate, well, I would say intuitive eating is the ultimate in terms of like what I eventually would like people to get to as like the ultimate highest level, most advanced form of eating.
Totally.
But that's really fucking hard to get to. Like, to become an actual intuitive eater is very difficult, which is one of the things that infuriates me. And people are like, nope, you just need to start with intuitive eating. It's like, that's wildly stupid. That's literally that's like taking a 15-year-old kid who's never driven and being like, okay, so for your driver's license test, we're going to put you in the Daytona 500. It's like, are you out of your
That
fucking
is a
mind?
great analogy.
Like, it's crazy. It's so I think the best starting place for people, like the first progression, is just writing down everything they eat. That's progression number one. You don't need to track the calories. You don't need to track protein, carbs, fats, fiber, none of it. I just want every meal, you write it down.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to write like the how much of it, just like cheeseburger, apple, whatever. I don't know who's eating those two together, but you write everything you eat down, and it's everything. You need to get in the habit of everything you eat, you write it. I don't care if it, like, at this point, and this is like the base beginning of maybe someone who has a ton of weight to lose, 100+ pounds to lose, and they have no desire to spend time tracking with this. It's like they hate every second of it. This is like the real base beginner. They need to get in the habit of understanding everything you eat needs to get tracked. In the same way, like with a budget, everything you spend needs to get tracked. Everything you bring in needs to be tracked. Like, yeah, sure, you could spend money on something and not track it, but your bank account still fucking knows that money isn't there. So if you have a donut, even if you're not proud of it for whatever reason, track that you ate the donut. Just write it down. Then from there, and the time frame could differ massively depending on the person, then I would say, all right, let's start with calories. That's just the priority number one. So you've already been writing it down. So now I just want you to start tracking your calories. You don't even need to hit a certain caloric number yet, but start adding it up.
Mhm.
Like, start adding this up and just play this game. It's just addition. That's all we're doing. Add up the calories of everything you're eating. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't even need to weigh and measure it. You could just eyeball it. You could go on MyFitnessPal if you want and just say, yeah, like, choose whichever one might fit the best scenario. Just get a ballpark for where your calories might be. And I like this because when when you first start driving, you're very often looking at your speedometer. You're trying to see how fast you're going, and you don't really know just by looking out the windshield. You need to see exactly what the speed says so that you know you have a general gauge for it. But after a while, you don't need to look at the speedometer all the time to have a pretty good idea of how fast you're going. It just
Mhm.
becomes second nature. Um, that is what I feel like with calorie tracking, where it's like at first you really need to be tracking everything meticulously in order to understand how many calories you're eating. But after a certain amount of time, you don't need to be weighing and measuring. You don't need to be doing that. But eventually you'll just have a good idea. So first start with the calories. Then from there, I would bring in a scale. I would bring in a scale. So now you've been tracking the calories of what you've been eating. Now let's track how much you're actually eating.
Mhm.
So we've been writing it down. We've been ballparking the calories. Now we're gonna actually weigh your shit, and you're gonna be like, oh my god, I thought I was eating this many calories. I thought that was like 3 ounces of chicken. That was actually 12 ounces of chicken. I vividly remember the first time I weighed chicken. I will never forget this. I was like, I was supposed to have 3 ounces of chicken, and this is when I was being super restrictive, but I was like just learning about how it worked. I thought I was having 3 ounces of chicken. I was having, like, that's a real life example. That was me. I was having 12 ounces of chicken when I thought I was having 3 ounces of chicken. I
Wow.
was 18 years old. I was like, I don't know. I just thought this was 12. I thought this was 3 ounces, and which means I was having quadruple the calories and quadruple the protein without realizing it. It's like, oh, no fucking wonder. It's like not like I'm just genetically chubby. I'm not just genetic. It's like I'm just overeating based on like what I
Yeah.
thought I was having. So then I would actually weigh and measure it, which at the beginning it's going to take a little bit of extra time. Within a month, it's going to be a fraction of the time. It will literally take less than 5 minutes a day after a month of doing it. Um, and then from there, it's very easy to add in, okay, we're going to get your protein, get your fiber as well. So you track your calories, protein, fiber, super easy. Once you've got the calories down, like, and you've got the weighing down, it's all there. Like it's the information is already freely readily available. So you just add that in, and protein and fiber are really the most important things outside of calories, in my opinion. Carbs and fats can fall wherever you want as long as those are in check, especially from an overall health and fat loss perspective.
Mhm.
From there, if I'm working with someone who is a higher level athlete, and athlete use relatively liberally, like it could be someone who just really likes to train. Maybe they're not even competing in anything, but like they really like to be a high level trainee, or someone who actually is an athlete and they're competing in something. That's when I bring in macros. It could be bodybuilder. I don't really work with bodybuilders at all. But like that's when I start to bring in macros, because that's when you start to really figure out, okay, what do I feel better with? High carb, low fat, low fat, high carb. What do I do better with the cycling approach on training days, rest days? If I'm having a long endurance based run, maybe I'll do better with a higher carb intake, lower fat here. If I'm having more of a lift, maybe I can change it. That's where I get into, most people don't need to do that, but if someone is really interested in it, and or they're like a high level trainee, then it makes sense to really start to pay attention to that, so you can have a better idea of what fuels you best. I also think every personal trainer and nutrition coach should do that, so that they can actually have the practical experience of going through it.
Mhm.
Um, and then after you've done that for a while, you'll probably be on a little bit of the obsessive side, and that's when I say let's go more intuitive eating. That's like the final boss that we need to conquer is, okay, get to the intuitive eating point. Now we need to track less. I want you to stop weighing and measuring. I want you to stop being so meticulous with it. Now I want you to get to a point where we can just sort of eyeball it and sort of drive without checking the speedometer all the time. That's the general route that I would take.
Nice. And even like the whole trajectory of how you got up to intuitive eating, like for the concepts for people to understand what food looks like, portion sizes, weighing things out, understanding like what's on their plate. They can't just jump, like you said at the beginning, like people want to start out intuitively eating, or people think that they're eating healthy or whatnot. They can't just jump to intuitively eating because it's not It's like you said, sending them into Daytona race and at
It's
15 years
crazy.
old.
It's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah,
And it's been marketed as something that any beginner can pick it up. And
yep,
oftentimes people who are marketing it as that are people who've been obsessive with their calorie tracking, often to the point of now they have a disordered relationship with food. They have severe binge eating disorder. They have severe anorexia, bulimia, all these things. And they're like, well, I just do intuitive eating now. It's like, yeah, but you have fucking years of meticulous tracking. So
facts.
you don't need to track anymore in order to have an idea of how much you're eating. Of course you can do intuitive eating now. You've literally gone through all of those other levels. Meanwhile, Carol needs to lose 75 pounds, hasn't tracked anything in her entire life, and you're telling her just to eat whatever she feels like she needs to eat.
Yeah,
Like, dear Lord, even me, if I eat whatever I feel like, I'll be feeling like Papa John's pizza all the fucking time. Like,
facts.
come on. It's ridiculous.
Okay, so I want to go back to the point where you mentioned that you would do like tracking macros down to the protein, fats, and carbs for like athletes or bodybuilders. Our demographic is like women that are like 45, 50 years old that want to be more, dare I say the word tone, but build more muscle, right? They want to decrease the body fat and they want to be more, they want to show more strength. At that level, would you have somebody track more macros to decrease the body fat? Or how would you approach that?
Uh, like what level are they at? Like, they're generally fit, but they're not like a bodybuilder level?
They're all different. They come in from all different shapes and sizes, right? So like people that would lose 50 pounds or 70 pounds, but then people that would just need to lose 10 pounds and like decrease more
Yeah.
body fat around it. Our approach is we meet the human where they're at
Yep.
and we understand where they're at on the first onboarding call. And then we basically customize our program on what they need from there. But just curious in terms of like the approach that you mean with macros at those levels, would you
Yeah.
also put into the category of like, okay, you want to decrease body fat, you got to really focus in and hone in on certain aspects of
No. So for me, it's literally from a purely fat loss perspective, calories, protein, fiber.
got it.
As long as
Cool.
your calories are in check, it's physiologically impossible to gain fat. And like as long as your calories are in check, you will lose fat. As long as your protein is in check, you will be able to get stronger and build and maintain muscle. And as long as your fiber is in check, you're really taking care of the most important health markers as well, from cholesterol and blood pressure and all of that. Carbs and fats at that point are going to be they're going to be fine. I look at macros, carbs, and fats more from a performance perspective than I do from a fat loss perspective.
Gotcha.
Because as long as those things are in check, fat loss is going to be fine no matter what. The
Totally.
I will if someone is like, hey, if I get someone who's super type A and they like to have numbers and they really enjoy that, like oftentimes if I work with finance people, if I work with accountants, they just love numbers and it makes sense to them, and they're like, hey, I'd like to do my macros. Cool, no problem. But if I get someone like I don't know, a busy mother who like is working and she's going like she's got a lot of shit to take care of, it's like, I'm not giving you your macros. Like that's just extra shit to have to match together. How about just calories, protein, fiber? Let's just hit that. You're good and it'll be totally fine.
100% totally agree with that. All right, let's bring it to that busy mom, that person that is like on the go every single day. What do you feel like the most common mistakes are that you see people try to or people make when they try to balance this goal that they want to accomplish for themselves and their everyday lives? How would you guide someone to make it more manageable?
So you got a busy mom and she's struggling to just do everything.
Yeah.
Um, the first thing that I would do is, and like you said, you got to figure out what you got to talk to the individual. For me, I'll usually go with either the lowest hanging fruit and or the thing that they enjoy the most as the
Mhm.
one that to start with. So for most people, and I would say especially women, it's walking. Um, Ironically, for whatever it's worth, like a lot of men like it too. They just haven't given it a shot yet, and they don't realize that they actually do enjoy it. And it's like, bro, you get out in the sun and you walk, or even if you're not in the sun, maybe you're on a treadmill, you get a little sweat going, listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube. It's like all of a sudden, like you feel really good after a 30-minute stroll. It doesn't even
Mhm.
have to be like an intense walk at all. But walking it's the easiest, it's the simplest, it's has the greatest overall impact, and I think it's like the gateway drug of everything else. I used to start everyone with their nutrition. Like that would be like, all right, well, if nothing else, let's just get your nutrition in check. The
Mhm.
issue with that I found over many years is that if you start with nutrition, and I'm not saying it's wrong, for some people it's right, but for many people, it's not the right choice at first because you don't get immediate feedback on nutrition. You get someone who's in a deficit for a week. You don't get number one, like you don't immediately feel better. You're immediately being like, all right, well, I'm a little bit more hungry. I'm more irritable. I'm not able to eat what I want to eat. And in a week, your weight could go up in a deficit.
Mhm.
The scale could do any number of fucking things. So
Mhm.
you're pissed and you feel like it's not working, even though it is, and you're not feeling any better. Whereas if you just start walking, you go on a walk and immediately you feel better. Like no one has gone on a walk and felt worse. So you get the immediate benefits of exercise. You feel better, and like that's even if they don't lose any weight at the end of the week, they're like, I do feel better though, and like my resting heart rate is starting to improve, and like I'm noticing that I enjoy the time outside, and they're almost always on their screen less because they're walking. Maybe they're catching up with friends or family. It's like the walk is just it's the gateway drug because you immediately feel better,
Yep.
and then once you go on a walk or once you do some form of exercise, for many people now all of a sudden it becomes quote unquote worth it to focus on their nutrition. And this is something I noticed with Gary Vaynerchuk. If if he didn't do some form of fitness that day, his nutrition would be a shit show. But if he did something, even if it was just mobility work, all of a sudden in his mind it became worth it to eat well to fuel that performance. Even if it was nothing, no sweat was broken, it was literally just a couple exercises, a couple mobility drills, maybe a little bit of walking. All of a sudden his nutrition was dialed. And
Yeah.
so, and I think there's like it's the worth it aspect, but also you just feel better. Like you feel better from exercising. And so you want to fuel yourself as a result of it.
Totally.
And I think um, I think whether we want to call it depression or just normal human emotions, um, when you exercise, you pull yourself out of at least a depressive state, not depression, but you pull
Mhm.
yourself out of you immediately feel better, like
Facts.
always, no matter what. And when you feel better, everything else is going to be easier to do. So for
Mhm.
me, it's let's just start with exercise. Let's start with walking. If you like lifting, we'll do lifting. If you like walking, we'll do walking. If you want to do some hit, cool. I don't give a shit. Let's do some hit. Like
Facts.
whatever. Let's just get you doing something, and then the other things will stack on top.
Love that. I love that fitness isn't necessarily the same protocol for everybody. It's like, what
Correct.
does this human need right now? It's going to make them the most successful in the long haul. And whether it be just starting with walking or doing some band workouts, and then they can graduate to then doing some kettlebell and then
Yeah.
graduate to doing some strength training.
I think the ultimate goal of a coach, like if we really look at this from a philosophical perspective, the
Yeah.
ultimate goal of a coach is to not let your client quit. If you don't let them quit, they're going to do really well. They're going to make progress. If they quit, well, then obviously it's done. Like it's over. And yes, they can come back and pick it up, and that's great. But for me, my ultimate failure is when a client quits. That's like
Mhm.
and I've failed many, many, many times. But if I change my goal from get this person the optimal program to don't let them quit, oh my gosh, the success rate just absolutely skyrockets. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. It's a game changer when you can shift someone's because it's not like, let's be real, it's not just about macros, it's not about nutrition, it's not about fitness. It's like, where is this individual at mentally, and what limiting beliefs, stories, narratives that they have going on in their head that also need attention, because that's going to come get in the way of where they're how they're successfully implementing the nutrition, how they're successfully implementing the fitness. And more than likely or not, it's going to be one of those stories or narratives that's going to make them quit. And so if
Correct.
you can get super uh curious about where they're at, and then make the whole journey about that and working towards those incremental changes of changing the narrative, then they're most likely going to succeed. And it's just like, what do they need? They don't need this same template that I gave to Cheryl, they need a protocol specifically for them that's going to make them
Correct.
succeed. I love that philosophy. I think that people need to like go rewind that like 3 minutes and that's what you just said. Because there's definitely coaches listening to this as well. Um, you are a strong advocate for strength training. So why do you think that that is such a important part of overall health and fitness?
Oh man, that could fill a library. I mean, I'll say this: like the vast majority of my clients, just like with you, your listeners are women. Um, and I'll say, I think it's important for everybody. I think more men need to improve their mobility, and more women need to improve their strength. Uh, every time I go into a public gym, and to be fair, it's changed a lot in the last 10 years, but I see a lot of women on the cardio machines, and I see a lot of men at the weights, and I'm like, this should switch. We should see a big switch
Oh,
here. We should see more men on the doing some cardio mobility and some more women lifting some weights. And again, ideally, everyone should do everything. Like everyone should improve their cardio, everyone should improve their strength, everyone should
everyone
improve their
should start
mobility.
doing some splits like you.
But but like it makes sense because number one, like we naturally as humans gravitate towards the things that we're good at. I think
Mm.
just genetically, men will often be predisposed to lifting weights. Like the higher testosterone levels, generally they're better at that, and they're not nearly as good at mobility or cardio. And women generally are more flexible, they're more mobile, and they have an easier time with things like yoga, Pilates, and cardio. And not to mention, we could bring in the environmental component where it could be intimidating going into a gym and you have all the men in the weights area, which I fully get as well. But just based on human psychology and behavior, you like the things you're good at and you hate the things you suck at. So usually we see women gravitating away from strength training. But in the last 10 years, we're seeing a lot more of it, which has been wonderful. Really, like last 15 years. I mean, here's the thing. Like I my especially since I've had two girls, and it doesn't matter girls or boys, but since I've had two kids and they happen to be girls, my real focus has been like just on not just living a long life, but living a high quality long life.
Mm.
And I hang out with family members who are women in their 60s and 70s and 80s, who have not strength trained, who have not taken care of their health. And then I have my co-coach in my program, Susan Niebergall, and she's
She was
almost
on the podcast last season, actually.
she's a fucking savage.
Yeah, she's a beast.
She's a fucking beast, and she's the same age as many of the women in my family. And I see her frequently, when I tell you the difference in how a day is with a woman who's 65 and strength trains versus a woman who's 65 and doesn't strength train, it is
Mhm.
absolutely insane. And
Mhm.
it's based on ability to just literally just activities of daily living, just being able to do things for herself comfortably, safely, confidently. Um, if we really want to get into it, we could talk about the ability to defend yourself in case of a dangerous situation, and maybe not even against an attacker, but God forbid, who knows, there's a fire. Are you able to get up and fucking run out of your house? Are you able to take care of yourself? You're like, are you able to do that? And then outside of that, just everyday life. Can you bend down and tie your shoes without pain? Can you get upstairs no problem? Can you, if God forbid you fell, are your bones strong enough to withstand that break? Over
Totally.
70% of people who fall after age of 60 are in a life threatening situation if they fall, because they're going to break a bone, and like that's how people die. It's
Yeah,
wild.
I spent 9 years in the healthcare. I worked in long-term care and then the emergency room,
So you
and
get it.
yeah, that's the one reason why I got into fitness is because I saw what life could be like if I didn't
Yep.
take care of myself, like, wild.
It's and I understand from a marketing perspective and a sales perspective, it's not as sexy, and people just want to hear that they're going to look better and they're going to get more toned and defined. And yeah, that too, but also you have a better chance of not dying, and also have a better chance of living an amazing high quality life with your kids, your grandkids. And if you don't have kids or grandkids, then volunteering, or you're just self-sufficient on your own, and if you fall over, you don't need to call 911. Or like there's just it's really scary because I see it real time in my life, and you've seen it in your life. And it's just like I think the coolest part is you don't need to spend hours in the gym to see these benefits. You could
Mhm.
literally you do 1 set per muscle group a week, just 1 set every week per muscle group, and all of a sudden you're gonna be a completely different human in 6 months. It's insane. You don't need that much.
Yep. People need to hear this more often. Thank you for bringing this, and thank you for doing the work that you do, Jordan, because people need to hear this more often rather than trying to just get to an outcome quick and
Yeah.
just do something that's gonna give them longevity and be able to be around longer and be around to run around with their kids, and, I think that this message is really important for people to hear and continue hearing. I'm hopeful that the fitness space goes in the direction of what the conversations that we're having right now.
I think it will. I mean, realistically, listen, there are pros and cons to everything, and we see some wild shit out there. But like
Mhm.
compared to when I first got in the industry, the overall level of knowledge has improved dramatically. But and sort of playing my own devil's advocate here, we're seeing knowledge improve, but are we seeing health improve? And that for me is okay, great. Now more people like people. No one knew what a calorie deficit was when I was talking about it. No one knew. Now everybody fucking knows what a calorie. Like almost everybody does. And people understand how insulin works now, and people understand how like they understand these things on a level that usually you had to get an undergraduate degree in,
Mhm.
which is pretty cool. And also, it's like, but you're still not fucking moving. You're still not exercising. You're still not doing like what the fuck. So that's
Totally.
really where I think that's my concern is even with social media improving, we're still not seeing changes. And yeah, we can look at alcohol consumption, we can look at smoking, and like people can have all the knowledge in the world, but right now there are many people going to buy their first pack of cigarettes. They're not even addicted yet, but they're going to go buy their first pack literally right now. It's like there's a skull and crossbones on it. They know it can cause cancer. It's like the behavioral side is really what we need to make a difference in as an industry, and that's why so much of my content is just focused on the easiest, lowest hanging fruit that's enjoyable, and making sure people know that they can't fail, because it's like the only way you fail is if you quit. That's it.
Mhm. Love that. I love what you're doing too with getting into the kids space.
Oh,
That's
thank
super
you. That's
cool.
fun. That's very
Yeah.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was completely unexpected. It was I have a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
She's a menace. And I love that girl so much. She's gonna be dangerous.
That's
This
so
girl.
cool what you started to do jumping with her on her on your shoulder.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm super excited about that. Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
I mean, she's just the best. She's absolutely amazing. And I see like I was never part of the kids YouTube space. Like I never watched kids YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, like I'm seeing like for the last 2 years, we just had another girl, and
Congrats, by the way.
thank you, thank you. It's an amazing blessing. And I'm seeing a lot of kids YouTube channels, and at one point I was like, you know what, I'd really like it if she would, instead of just like sitting down, like if she was being more active. So I start searching for kids, for her specifically. I was like, oh, you know, it'd be great because we already have her in gymnastics, which is like I think every parent should put their kids in gymnastics. It's like the most important thing from an athletic perspective. She's already in gymnastics, and she's a fucking beast. Like she can hold on to things for like 15 seconds. Like she can hold her own
Wow.
weight. Like and she can jump high and balance. Like she does the balance beam. She's 2. It's insane.
Oh, yeah, where she
Um,
just jumped off of the curb too, right? And she
yes,
was so excited.
yeah, she jumps up
That
and
is
down, and like,
badass.
and my favorite part is sometimes she eats shit. Sometimes she'll fall and she just gets right back up. Like she doesn't cry. She's just like, oh, and literally she was like, "Ooh, fell nose, and just boom. Like she had blood on her nose, kept going, kept going. Like she doesn't
That's
care, which
amazing.
is really, really, it's great for her. It's great for her younger sister to see now. Um, but I remember I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe we could see, because also another group of people that are really impressive to me are dancers.
Mm.
Dancers just have insane strength, insane mobility, insane body control, insane balance. And so I started looking for kids dancing videos, and we found one, and it was really bad. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, and by the way, not only was it bad, but it had like millions of views. And I was like, okay.
No way. How
So
was it bad?
there's
What do you mean by how like, what was bad about it that
it just, the
made it
production wasn't good, the interaction
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
good, like, the audio wasn't good, the teacher wasn't it wasn't where I thought it could be. And as a content creator, I think I have a much higher expectation,
Yeah.
but also like, who am I to decide? Because it has millions of views and the person doing it is doing great. So clearly crushing it. But I think it could still be done better. So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to start. I discussed it with my wife and she was like, I think that would be great. And uh, so yeah, just I recently got into it and it's been so fun to see not only the kids doing it, but now I have parents. I have parents who are doing it with their kids.
That's
And
so
it's
has
just like,
impact. That's a
it,
positive impact, man. That's
yeah,
huge.
it's really wonderful.
What's your wife's job this week?
Oh, man, this week we'll say an underwater pizza delivery girl.
That shit gets me hysterically laughing. It's so good.
The best. It's really funny because whenever I bring it back and I, like, make up these jobs, there's always a fair amount of people who don't know that I'm making it up.
Yeah.
And the other day I said she was an underwater welder, and
Yeah, I
and
saw that one.
And someone was like, there were a bunch of people, but they were like, "Oh my gosh, like that's really incredible. Like she must be in such good shape." And I was like, it's just a joke." Like
It has me hysterical. Oh man, Jordan. Well, for the people that maybe have just learned who you are for the first time today, shout out your Instagram handle. It's all going to be in the description too, but shout out your Instagram handle and also the YouTube for the kids. So maybe that we can spread the word too to get that out.
You're incredibly kind. Well, first I'll say thank you for having me on. I
Yeah.
sincerely appreciate it. I think everyone who's listening, you don't even need to follow me. You have everything you need here. Like this is an
Aw,
amazing resource that you have, and I think you're incredible, and I'd love to get to know you better.
thank
Um,
you.
my Instagram is just Syatt Fitness, and the kids YouTube channel is a kids workout official. If you YouTube like workouts with Coach J or like jungle workout with, that's like the first one that we did that did really well. Um,
Nice.
but where are you based?
Philly,
Oh,
right
you're in
outside of
Philly. You're East
Philadelphia.
Coast. That's why we get along. Okay, nice.
Oh yeah, you're from this area too, right? Or
Yeah,
you're
we grew up in Massachusetts, and I lived in New York for 5 years. It was my wife and I were
Dang.
just talking about this the other day, like, we met someone from Philly. We went to, a birthday party for our, one of our daughter's schoolmates, and the mom was from Philly, and my wife was like, "When people are from the East Coast, we just click. Like, there's something about East Coast people where you just
That's
immediately
awesome.
you just click." So that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, that's awesome, Jordan. Well, hey, man, I just getting to know you a little bit more on this episode. You're such a dope human, and it's so cool to, be able to speak to somebody that I followed for years and just genuinely appreciate your approach and your straightforwardness and your like no bullshit. Like you just say it how it is, and people that needs to be more. Like, can you clone yourself? Like, please.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm making a podcast. We're building a new house right now, which is an incredible blessing, and I'm building out a podcast studio in the house. And so we're gonna move there hopefully within the next 8 to 12 weeks. And I would love to bring you out and have you
Oh
come on
yeah.
the podcast when that's all ready. And because I love this, and I love podcasting is my favorite form of content, especially because I get to meet new people. Um, I've always like I'm excited to do it in person, have a sit down conversation, and really get to hang out with the person. So when that's ready, I would love to bring you on mine, and we can have another great conversation.
Thank you. That means the world to me. I appreciate that. I feel so privileged to have you on this podcast here and to get to know you a little bit more. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to connecting with you in the future and having a sit down conversation and just keep being you. The world needs
Likewise.
more of you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jordan. Hey, really quick, before you go, I have one small favor to ask. If this episode brought you value or sparked something in you, take just a moment to hit that review button. Your rating and review make all of the difference, helping more women discover the tools they need to transform the fitness and their confidence. It takes less than a minute, but it can change the path of someone else's journey. Thank you so much for leaving that review. I appreciate you so much.